It's Sunday, June 28th, 2020. This is All About Your Benjamins and your weekly mixtape and week in review video. I feel like I say this every month. I can't believe it's the end of the month. We're already through June, halfway through the year. Second quarter's about to end. It just seems to be flying by. It wasn't that long ago back in March where it felt like every day was slowly going by. So trying to make sure that we don't let the summer fly by. Here in Indiana, it looks like kids are going to go back to school at normal time. Different protocol, some procedures, but it looks like school is going to start on time, provided we don't have a big spike here, which is a perfect segue into the first headline that may or may not be impacting your financial plan and portfolio, and it is that coronavirus numbers are creeping back up, specifically in a handful of states like Florida, Texas, Arizona. So we got to keep an eye on that because the big concern earlier was, do we have a spike? Do we have a second wave in the fall? Are we getting that second wave now? Have we reopened too early? Are we making too much of this? That was to be seen, but we're seeing numbers spiking up. We saw Texas decide to slow down their opening of the state, and that will have impact on the markets, the economy, and other things. We've started to see a little bit of traction moving forward with the market. The market's looking forward 6 to 12 months, so if it's anticipating things are going to get better and we find out that this second wave hits sooner or we have to go into another quarantine type of period, that will have a short-term impact on the markets. So that will be something we'll want to pay attention to. And just another conversation piece of maybe we should all rethink wearing the masks. I know it's not fun, but I think it's become too much of a political signal personally. I don't enjoy wearing it, but I also, if it helps a little bit, might as well do it. And if it helps somebody else out there that is more concerned and more scared feel a little bit safer, I feel like with everything going on in this world, if we can do some small gesture to let our peers and our community members know that while we may not necessarily get needed, that we're going to go ahead and do this to make them feel better, I just feel like that's some goodwill. So a little bit of commentary that maybe you don't share the same beliefs with, that's okay, but I just think that it's a small gesture, whether or not it fully works or it works as much as we think we do. If it makes other people feel good and comfortable, I feel like it's a nice thing to do. It's a good gesture to put others in front of ourselves and make them feel good. So I'll get off my soapbox, but just wanted to offer that out there as something to consider as well. If you're looking for a way to give back and put good into the world, a small gesture like that may just be enough to make somebody else out there feel comfortable, and you'll never know it. You won't be able to see them smile. Going into the markets and the economy, I mentioned the COVID numbers creeping back up. There's another headline we're going to get to in a moment, but the market had a sell-off this week. No big deal. I think it was down about 2% at the end of the week. So, we're having bounces around. Volatility is a part of investing. Storylines go to COVID. They go to the banks and some other areas, overheated market, things going up. So just bring that up because it's in the market, it's in the news, you hear about it, and just an opportunity to remind you that a diversified portfolio of low-cost funds, not reacting, not letting emotions get to it, have a financial plan that guides that plan, and to make sure that you have enough liquidity for needs that you know are coming up, whether that's income needs, whether that's a down payment for a house, or whatever you might need some money for in the short term, next 1 or 2 years, probably should not be having it into the market because of the volatility. So any opportunity I get to drive home that core belief for me, I'm going to put it out there just to make sure you keep on hearing it and hopefully you believe in it as well. Now what funds you use and all that stuff, that's another discussion, but I think low cost diversification, not reacting, and having a plan to help guide how much cash we need to have, what we can afford to invest and let ride through the markets is a great approach to doing all this and coming out the end with a higher likelihood of succeeding. Unemployment numbers, we check those every month. In June they stayed basically the same at 1.5 million initial unemployment benefit claims. So we're not seeing that get any better. It's also not getting any worse. It's still a high number. So we want to continue to watch that. We're seeing a spread in that wealth gap continue. You have a lot of us who are very fortunate to continue to be working that have not been impacted by the coronavirus and everything very much. There's certain areas of the economy that are still doing real well. And then you have industries like entertainment and food services and retail that have gotten slammed and still can't get back up on their feet. And that's just going to create that spread to be even greater. So we'll keep an eye on that. Because that'll be a part of conversations in the fall for the election and just figuring out how do we get things back on track. The Federal Reserve this time was not talking about interest rates, but talking about the bank stress test. So coming out of the great financial crisis, they began to annual stress tests on the banks to see do they have enough capital to make it through another great financial crisis situation. The Federal Reserve said they're okay with the way things are now, but they were concerned about if this was prolonged, what could happen. So they put some requirements out there, restrictions, if you will, on the banks. The banks cannot go do buybacks right now, and there's a cap on the dividends that they're able to pay out. And the market initially did not like that. I don't know if it was fear that maybe things are worse than they really are, if it was not liking regulation telling banks what to do, probably a little bit of both. But that was the narrative that came out the day that news was out there. In case you don't know what a buyback is, basically that is the company goes back out into the open market and buys back its own shares of its company. The thought process is they know their company is doing well. They view that the price on the market is below average or below what it should be, so they buy it back as a good investment. Two camps. One camp thinks that's a great idea. If you know your company is doing better and you see it at a value, go buy it. Another camp says that those funds should be redistributed in other ways through dividends to shareholders or reinvested back in the company to help it grow. So, and with everything, there's always two camps. One loves it, one hates it, and they fight about it. But that's what the buybacks are. So right now, banks can't go back and buy back. I'm not a huge fan of unnecessary regulation, but if this little regulation prevents the banks from being in a bad situation, if this does prolong, then being a little bit conservative at this point I don't think is a bad thing. They can always go back to buying back the shares in the future. So all in all, I don't have a huge issue with this, so long as it doesn't keep compounding to where government is stepping in more and more and more and more. But to have a regulation that for right now they can't buy back, I don't think that's a huge deal. And the good news is right now the banks are all in good shape, and this is just a step to help make sure that if this is prolonged, they stay in good shape. Finally, has nothing to do with our economy, but there is a company over in Germany called Wirecard, and their CEO was arrested for a $2 billion missing amount of money from their company. So somehow there's $2 billion that's not accounted for in their accounting, and that all falls on the CEO. So just more of an interesting story. I think it'll be a good book one day and probably a good movie, but we can watch this as we go along. I'll keep you up to date as news comes out, but that is the largest sum of money to have gone disappearing. So we'll be interested to see where that money went, how it was spent, what it funded, or if it's just an accounting error, as they're probably going to claim it be. But nonetheless, you've probably never heard of Wirecard, and if you're not watching financial media, which hopefully you're not watching too much of it, you probably haven't heard about this story. So I'll keep you up to date with that. It'll be a nice little distraction from everything that goes on, maybe a little bit of entertainment as well. But Wirecard CEO was arrested for missing $2 billion. So that's everything for this week. Head over to All About Your Benjamins. Check out the great blog post. There's a great photo of my little guy Leo. You can guess at what happened Sunday evening to make it an exciting evening. Look at the picture and see what your story might be of what happened to him. He's okay, but it was a scary Thursday night over here at our house. So I put a picture in there. It's nothing too gross, but just a great smile by him with some marks from Thursday evening's excitement. So check out the great blog post this week, the photos as well. Head over to allaboutyourbenjamins.com to find that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be putting a lot more content from RLS Wealth on the channel, so there'll be more financial education coming to that in the near future. Hopefully be entertaining as well. So with that, we'll let you get to your day. Have a great weekend, have a great week, and we'll see you in the next episode.